In thanking people, I want to thank first the people of North Carolina for following the lead and staying off the roads in most cases and taking care of their families and understanding that their public safety is our number one priority, in addition to the safety of our emergency personnel that are throughout the state from the mountains to the coast as we speak today. I also want to thank the business community and our school boards and our mayors and our local police chiefs and all the volunteer agency partners that we're working with hand in hand during the last 24 hours and who we'll continue to work with for the next 48 hours. They have implemented the right measures to keep North Carolinians safe, and we continue to do everything we can to fulfill our goal. However, I would like to state that we have some sadness, and that is there have been 2 more fatalities. A person who was injured late Wednesday did pass away from the injuries, and our prayers are with those families. In addition, early this morning, we had a very serious wreck on I-95 where one person has died, a major trucking accident with several trucks in a car, and sadly, we had a death in Johnson County in I-95 where we're having some very serious issues on I-95 at this point in time, primarily because we have cars coming out of Virginia where there's a lot of snow, and then they think when they get into North Carolina, because the roads are clear of snow, they think they're safe and they increase their speeds, and that's just not the case. Parts of I-95 are very dangerous when you come into North Carolina, and we're asking people to please be aware. Just because there isn't snow doesn't mean the roads are not safe, and that is of great concern, which I'll talk about shortly. So we're asking everyone to please be very careful, stay off the roads if you don't need to be on the roads, and spend some time with your family, enjoy time with your family. Brief weather update. As you can see by the screen to my right, we're having weather issues across the state from the mountains all the way to the coast. In the Asheville and the Triad areas, you're kind of seeing a U-shaped pattern from Asheville all the way to the Triad, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, where we're having some serious snow accumulation, and expect more snow accumulation during the next several hours up to 1 a.m. this morning. Up to this tonight and early morning. We have, as you see in the Charlotte region and the rural areas outside the Charlotte region, we are having some snow accumulation. The dilemma there in the Charlotte region is we have a possibility of a ½ inch of ice, and that's going to be a major issue, possibly with power outages, and that's our major concern in that area right now, along with difficult driving. The coastal counties along the coast, we're seeing some heavy rain. It doesn't look like we're going to have any major flooding, but we are probably going to have some beach erosion. But we are concerned about the rain, and we're having some ice accumulation also in the Greenville, Elizabeth City area and the smaller towns in and around that vicinity. It looks like the only area that's really exempt from this is the Wilmington, southeastern part of our state, and Morehead City area where it's primarily rain, and we hope it stays that way. The issue across the state is very strong gusty winds, which could cause some power outages and again make it difficult for safety personnel. But very, very strong gust wind. This is a primary concern where we're going to have heavy ice, again primarily in the Charlotte region, although we're still not sure of the ice accumulation in the mountains, and also the Greensboro Triad area is also going to be some serious ice, but also very heavy snow. And we'll be glad to answer more questions about that from the experts in those areas. As I've mentioned before, we declared a state of emergency, which has enabled us during the last 24 hours to mobilize the necessary resources to respond to this storm. In fact, we have already had the Federal Emergency Management Agency liaison here at our State Emergency Response Team headquarters, and we'll seek federal help if we need it when the time comes. actions. I have also issued executive orders, which have been successful up to this point in time, to waive the usual hour and weight restrictions for truck drivers responding to the storm. This is especially important to the power restoration companies, especially Duke Energy and Dominion and other companies throughout the state. This is also essential to agricultural operations, and this is also very important for potential fuel supply issues. The power companies, I want to thank them across the state. They've got a big job on their hands. They, like our DOT workers and our Guard, have dispersed based upon their best knowledge that they get where the potential power outages will be. Most of the power outages are at this point in time in the far west area near the Tennessee border and in and around the Charlotte region. Right now, the latest reports show about 6,000 power outages across the state, again, mostly in the mountains and the Charlotte region. Of course, we expect that number to fluctuate as we see high winds across the state and also potential ice buildup tonight on the power lines, and that is a concern we have. I've asked our State Human Resource Director, Neil Alexander, to implement the adverse weather policy for all state government employees, and I've continued to encourage the private sector to carefully consider the weather condition and follow the state's leads, and it looks like most of the private sector employers have done just that, and I'd like to thank them for doing this. Fortunately, with technology and hopefully with no power outages, a lot of these people can do work from home, but I want everyone to take their public safety first at this point in time. Our State Highway Patrol is doing an outstanding job, and Colonel Gray will give a further report on the number of accidents that have come, but we are working on the quick clearance law that enables them to move or tow vehicles that may impede traffic or block shoulders and preventing the transportation crews from treating our roads. Again, most of the road issues right now are on I-95 and also on I-40 up in the mountains between Winston-Salem and Asheville, where I think it's gone down to one lane on each side, and we have some issues there, which Secretary Tennyson will be reviewing those details. I'm very pleased with our policy, as I mentioned yesterday, about checking abandoned vehicles. This is something we take very seriously. We do not want any individual stranded out on the road, so our highway patrol officers are checking every vehicle that's stranded to make sure there's no one in it. If there's someone in it, we want to do everything we can to help them. Then we're marking those cars to notify other future people traveling by that those cars have been checked for possible occupants, and I think that's been an outstanding policy that was initiated in the past 2 years. I would like to thank Colonel Gray and his team for that effort. The National Guard under General Lusk has done an outstanding job. They've mobilized 100 soldiers to work in catch teams to help locate also stranded motorists. So they're working hand in hand with our men and women in black and gray with the Highway Patrol. The State Highway Patrol has responded to 571 calls for assistance, a very high number from yesterday. It's increased substantially. I think we've also identified about 25 to 30 abandoned cars throughout the state at this point in time. As you've been hearing all morning, most of the school systems across the state are closed. I think over about 90% of the school systems are closed. And again, we're having significant lane closure this morning on several routes, I-26, Henderson, and also Asheville, and I-40 near Black Mountain. Also, as of 9:30, all lanes of I-95 near Kenley are closed due to a major vehicle accident with 2 cars and 3 tractor trailers, and that's where we did have a loss of life, tragically. So it's I-95's been a mess. And by the way, early this morning, I've been watching the video cameras on roads throughout North Carolina, and again, where I'm seeing the accidents is where it looks like it's a safe road and people are speeding, and because they assume it's safe because they don't see snow on the roads, and that's our greatest concern right now. Obviously, the weather conditions will continue to change. change. As Nick might say, a concern we have right now is some of the mixtures are going from snow to rain, back to snow, back to rain, to freezing ice. And you've got to recognize when the rain comes, it's taking off the materials that DOT did such a good job putting on. And that's, again, a concern. When the black ice comes, the material that we've laid down during the past 24 hours won't work. And we've got we ask the media to clearly communicate that to the general public. And Nick might have more details on that. I'm very proud. I think North Carolina has the best emergency response team in the country. I'm also very proud of the cities and counties that are helping us with this. They are responding to this storm. They're poised to facilitate a quick recovery should there be a need. But again, we don't want to have that need, and that's why we continue to encourage people to stay off the roads. Again, our safety tips, the most critical partners we have are our state emergency response team, our citizens, and our media. And I do want to thank the media for continuing to do an excellent job in communicating across the state. We ask you to continue to be accurate and encourage safety over anything else. It is vital that our individuals and families also make sure that they're prepared with the proper goods in their homes so they don't have to go out. And I want to thank, again, the media for communicating that. First and foremost, continue to watch the local weather forecast and stay safe. Now is not the time to take any unnecessary trips or take risk. Avoid speeding and traveling. Avoid traveling on all roads if possible, and if you do get on the roads, please be very, very careful and don't speed. And if you must travel, in fact, if anything, reduce your speed and leave plenty of room between you and other vehicles. Again, a combination of the ice and heavy winds could cause power outages. So something my wife reminded me of last night that I didn't mention, and that is make sure to check with your neighbors and make sure they're okay, especially if the power outages go out. So this is the time to help your neighbor, especially if there needs of heat and light and flashlights and other things. This is the time to check on everyone. And also, my wife has again reminded me in a very professional way to also check your pets and the neighbors. During this cold weather, we want to make sure they're safe also. I want to encourage all the citizens, if you haven't done so already, to please download the Ready NC mobile app. It's a really very good app to give you up-to-date information from across the state, and we'd like to ask the media to continue to let the public know of the Ready NC app. So with that, I'm going to ask first Secretary Perry to give an update on some of the centers that we have in operation throughout the state, and I'd like to thank him and his great team for leading us in this effort. Secretary Perry, thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. Frank Perry with Public Safety. 3 years ago, the governor said one word, collaboration, and it's hard to envision how we could have more collaboration during times like this. For example, we want to thank volunteer agencies, as the governor alluded to. They are called VOAD, volunteer organizations activated during disasters, and they include the Salvation Army, Baptist Men, Methodist Men, the American Red Cross, and what they do is coordinate with the State Emergency Response Team, SERT. And the volunteer organizations help with our efforts here with the State Emergency Response Team. And that includes so many people, as the governor emphasized, checking on stranded motorists, checking on people who may be without power, and they include ALE and the SBI, who report directly to the FBI, to the governor, and the FBI is assisting as well as FEMA and other federal agencies. But one agency that we often forget during these times is fully activated when the Highway Patrol and the Guard are promoting public safety is the State Fusion Center. And the Fusion Center is up and running, and they help monitor complaints about crime and people in distress, either because of power failures or because of other episodes caused by the disaster. So we want to thank the SBI for operating this Fusion Center, which is up and running with SERT, Emergency Response Team, as well as all the volunteers. I want to thank the General, the Colonel, the Director, DOT is doing an absolutely outstanding job. The drive-in was quite manageable, and we thank them, even though we've had the sad fatalities that the governor mentioned. And now I guess we will talk Secretary Tennyson from DOT.
Thank you, Secretary Perry, for the compliment on how we've handled the roads, and in keeping with the governor's request, I hope everybody just takes time to consider whether they really need to go out and see for themselves. We think you need to not go out and see for yourself. Stay home. Our crews have been working overnight and working on snow and ice across the state. I want to answer a question that some people have asked about: why do you not see the blades down scraping all the time? And the situation is that you're not always able to remove what's there until it's been treated with salt, until it's been broken up, until there's enough to plow. So just because we have trucks out with plows on them doesn't mean they necessarily have to be scraping to be doing the job. They are out there placing sand and salt. We put out nearly 2 million gallons of salt brine in anticipation of the event, which helps to keep ice from bonding to the roadway. We've also used more than 12,000 tons of salt and more than 5,000 tons of the sand-salt mixture to treat roads across the state in specific areas. Crews will continue to be out in force to address roadways, and we do move crews around to deal with greater concentration of problem areas, and we'll be doing that as we're able to identify those areas that can afford to have a crew shifted. The priority order for handling roadways, we have 80,000 miles of state-maintained road in the state, and you have to have some priority. You can't do it all at once, so we start with the interstates and then move from there to the primary routes, the major routes, and then to lower volume roads. So we can't be everywhere all at once, but we're trying to make sure we handle the highest demand areas. Repeating again, it's key to not have much traffic out there when you're trying to deal with these things. So staying off the road will be helpful for us in that regard. We have been working in partnership with the Highway Patrol on the abandoned vehicles and have had to initiate towing on 19 vehicles. At least that was the snapshot as of 9:30 this morning. There may have been others. To expand a little bit on the governor's comments about lane closings and just to illustrate the breadth of those, I-95 South, the left lane closed at exit 102, which is near Selma. I-40 West, Raleigh, the right lane closed at exit 297, Lake Wheeler Road. I-40 East at Greensboro, there's a shoulder lane closed, exit 210, which is NC 68. I-40 East, Winston-Salem, the right lane is closed at exit 195, which is NC 109. I-40 East in Four Oaks, the road is closed at exit 337 due to an accident at Meadowbrook Road. I-440 East, Raleigh, the right lane is closed at exit 2. I-95 South, the governor mentioned with the major accident. I-40 West in Raleigh, we have a left lane closed at exit 284. And again, these things are intermittent and may happen at exits where there are multiple lanes off the exit to make sure that we can treat the area to keep people safe on some portion of it. We also have the NC DOT State Farm Safety Patrol vehicles out, have relocated the vehicles that normally would be working the Wilmington area to move into the area where we have a greater need. In the eastern part of the state, we've not yet experienced major issues along the Outer Banks, but this could well turn into the nor'easter and give us some problems there. We are pre-positioned on Hatteras and Ocracoke Islands. The other forms of transportation with which we work, including trains and public transit, have been impacted by the storm, and you'll just need to contact the local systems to determine those. As I said yesterday, our DMV offices function whenever they can. There are right now, there are at least there were, as of 9:30, 41 driver's license offices open in the state, but 72 were closed. So all of this information is available on our website, if you can check ncdot.gov/DMV, you can check to see what the local office is. The license plate agencies, which are operated by independent contractors, also have the same challenges. 20 of those that are in the state are open, 82 are closed. So you can see that we've got a substantial number that are not able to operate. And again, our license and theft folks continue to support the law enforcement function and help out with monitoring abandoned cars. We've assisted about 100 motorists whose vehicles have become disabled and gotten them to places of safety. Governor?
Thank you very much. Excellent job, Nick. Colonel Gray will go next to give a more detailed update on the highway patrol activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank my troopers for their hard work and dedication. Needless to say, they've been very busy in the last couple of hours. The Highway Patrol has all available personnel working, and we've asked our troop commanders to monitor their individual weather events and surge resources as the weather and traffic dictate. As the Governor mentioned earlier, north of I-40 on I-95, we've got our hands full, so we pulled our troopers out of the southern region of 95, and they're going up here to assist and help clear that up. Since midnight, we've responded to 571 collisions and over 800 calls for service across the state. And unfortunately, as the Governor mentioned, 4 fatal collisions have occurred due to this winter weather event. And of course, I express my condolences again to the family members of those tragic events. The Patrol will continue to maintain 24/7 coverage across the state to answer calls and to ensure that the disabled and stranded motorists are assisted in getting to a safe location. As always, we work closely with DOT, Emergency Management, the National Guard, alcohol law enforcement, wildlife resources, and all our other allied law enforcement agencies to ensure the safety of our citizens, and I appreciate their help in this endeavor. Again, we strongly encourage everyone not to travel unless it's absolutely necessary. Let's get through this event, let's get the roads cleared up, and then resume your normal daily activities. And just a reminder again, please do not call 911 or Star HP for road conditions. Let's keep those lines open for emergency traffic only. And you can maintain the roadway condition by dialing 511 or going to readync.org. Secretary Tennyson mentioned about the quick clearance and us towing vehicles. So if you go back and your vehicle's been towed and it's in the county, you can go to our website at Department of Public Safety, and it will have a link to towed and stored vehicles, and you can look up where your vehicle was towed to and how you get it back. If it was in the city, check with your local city, please. Again, please do not drive unless you absolutely have to. It'll help keep you safe and my troopers safe as well. Thank you, sir.
One other thing I do want to mention that I think Ann made a good point to me, and that was this, is that you've got a lot of DOT personnel, Guard personnel, emergency workers and so forth out right now working. They've been working all night. Check on them, too, if you're neighbors of them. They might need some help, especially if their power goes out. Their spouses might not be there. They're out working, trying to help the people. So all these people in the back row, their families are calling them, what about us? And they're serving the state right now. So I want to thank the men and women in red and, of course, the military members in this room. We have, just to let the public know, we have 2 major centers which have cameras across the state showing the road conditions. We're watching those every minute. There's constant communications between each region on what we're seeing on the cameras and what we're being reported to the field, and that's how these men and women are adjusting resources at a moment's notice. It's a fascinating operations center here, and I think we have another one outside of Charlotte, which shows more of the camera activity. One area is where we don't have the cameras at this point in time is on I-95, and that's where we had a major accident. And again, I cannot stress, if you're listening and coming in from Virginia area and you're hearing this broadcast, please slow down when you get into North Carolina. It might look safer than what the roads were in Virginia because they're having more snow there, but that is not necessarily the case because of the ice. So we want to prevent any further accidents. So with that, we'll be glad to take just a few questions. And if you raise your hand, you could recognize yourself and who you're with, please. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Bo Minnick with WNCN TV here in Raleigh. One, just a clarification question on you mentioned 4 fatalities. We know about the Stokes and Forsyth from yesterday and then the 95 one today. Wasn't sure what the situation was with the 4th one. And then back to 95, if we could talk maybe a little bit more about what people, if they do need to be on 95, obviously presuming there's going to be a big backup over there, what should people be doing in that area?
Let me first say the first 3 fatalities, actually, the accidents occurred on Wednesday evening. The most recent and one of the people just passed away from that accident. So that was the 3rd tragic death. The other one just occurred today on 995, and we got confirmation of that. That's where we had several trucks and an individual car, and I believe the person in the car lost their life. So that's where that occurred. Regarding I-95, I may have Nick or Colonel Gray give us the latest update on what you recommend people do. I think we've got the lanes open, going at least one direction. Do you have the latest update on that, Colonel? Come on up if you know, or Nick might have the latest right there in Johnson County.
All right, thank you, sir. The lanes were blocked. We had one tractor trailer. It was jackknifed in a roadway, but they're moving to get those out of the way, and they should be open shortly. And my recommendation is, of course, as the governor said, slow down, increase distance. But if you're currently sitting on I-95, just be patient for us a little bit, because as Secretary Tennyson mentioned, man, they prioritize those roads, and that I-95 is going to be their number one in that area. If they get off 95 on the side streets, they could run into even more problems. So just be patient. We'll get it cleared as quickly as possible.
Which, by the way, is a good emphasis. Our secondary roads that are more rural roads are going to be the most dangerous, and so those are the roads that we're also we tend to focus the attention on the interstate highways. That's where we have our cameras. Where I believe some of the fatalities have occurred out west is on secondary roads, which are going to be the most dangerous roads. Heck, just outside this center today, they are ice, and these secondary roads, whether they're city or state roads, are going to be the most dangerous roads. But again, the black ice, I just saw an accident in Chapel Hill on the camera where it doesn't look dangerous, but that car went around, and I think we had another car go off the road on the toll road here in the Raleigh area. I saw that on the camera earlier this morning. So very tough conditions, and if you go too fast, you're going to have difficulty. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
WRAL, sorry. Have any of the National Guard strike teams needed to be mobilized overnight or this morning as conditions got worse?
The questions about the National Guard and the 100 people we have, General Lusk.
Thanks, sir. Ma'am, I'll make sure I understand your question. Where did you say were additional ones mobilized?
Called out.
Okay. Well, they've reported in, and yes, they have actually gotten into the flow. Out of the 12 locations that we currently have the 100 National Guardsmen at, 3 of them are at least branch offices of North Carolina Emergency Management, primarily for liaison and helping coordinate the activities. The winter storm catch teams, those that are out in the Humvees and the other vehicles that are working to help assist with potential stranded motorists and doing health and welfare checks on neighbors and things like that the governor was mentioning. They have indeed gotten coordinated with local law enforcement and other agencies to do that. I don't have any stats right now as far as how many calls they've gone on, but I know that they have been put into work immediately upon arrival last night at 6 o'clock.
I might add the terrain far west. I mean, we're talking about very dangerous roads west of Asheville, going up to the corner right there at between Boone and Asheville, Tennessee border area. Very tough terrain, and I think they're expecting pretty heavy snowfall in that area too. So these are very rural areas and very tough conditions. And if you go off the roads on those secondary roads, you're going to have a tough time. So that's where we definitely want people to be very careful in the far western areas of the state. But look, it's going from I-95 all the way to the Tennessee border, and this is what this team is having to respond to. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
ABC 11 Eyewitness News. That was going to be my question, Governor. We've often seen winter storms that hit a section or here or there, or they move across the strait. Does this seem horribly widespread to you? I mean, it seems to, as you said, everything but Wilmington, basically.
Well, sadly, since I've been governor, this is the third one. They used to be unique until I became governor. I don't know if that's a good sign or not, but it reminds me of my days as mayor when we had the 100-year ice storm, the 100-year snowstorm, the 100-year drought, and the 100-year flood during my tenure. So maybe in that regard, I don't bring good luck, but this is, again, another unique experience, but we've had it now 3 years in a row where we've had a storm basically across the state. It doesn't go as far east this time, but frankly, even during the last 24 hours, again, we're not sure of the freezing rain in the eastern inland areas of the state, which could make especially the secondary roads extremely dangerous. So that is our greatest challenge on where to deploy the resources. And this is just not government resources. I think the big issue is going to be power outages resources, utility resources, and they're guessing like we were, because the weather conditions could change dramatically in the Triad area or the Charlotte area or even right here in the Triangle area or the Fayetteville right now is getting freezing rain. When I'm talking about areas, I'm talking about regions. So when I'm trying to signify regions, and those are both secondary roads and primary roads. And so that's our biggest challenge right now, and that's why we have resources deployed throughout. But it's a major challenge, but we're up to the challenge.
One more question, Laura Leslie, again with WRAL. So you mentioned that as the rain falls, it's going to wash off the brine and the other materials, and we're going to face more trouble with black ice. And of course, we've got some more snow forecast for tomorrow. Is there going to be a chance to get anything else out onto those roads before the snow moves in tomorrow, or is that just not going to? Are you not going to have time to do that?
That's a very good question, Laura. I'm going to have Nick answer that question.
Again, the brine pretreatment was what I was referring to as washing away, and certainly just because we put salt and sand on a spot doesn't mean it stays there. So we continue to return to those spots, and again, those are the trucks that you're seeing with plows also have spreaders on the back of them, and so that material will be reapplied, I'm sure, several times in a lot of the places that we have to work on.
Just don't take it for granted. People, I know I often get, why didn't they do that road? Well, they might have already sprayed that road, but this is the unique Carolina weather where sleet and rain and snow, then back to rain, and that makes it a very difficult job for DOT. That's why it's just best to stay off the road. I'd like to thank everyone, and again, thank the media and thank the citizens for cooperating. Let's enjoy time with the family, enjoy some rest, and go Panthers on Sunday. Thank you.